So investment in community is very, very important. It can lead to a reduction in crime. Speaking of a reduction in crime, I've got some gentlemen here with me who know a whole lot about it. Roll it, Kirk. Well, let's have a conversation about crime in East Baton Rouge Parish with our sheriffs at Gautreaux, District Attorney Hiller Moore, and the chief of the Baton Rouge Police Department, Thomas Morse Jr. So, gentlemen, let's jump right in. It's been a pretty busy first quarter of the year. What's going on?
Well, I can tell you within the Sheriff's Department, we're in the middle of consolidating our efforts. We're bringing our narcotics unit, which we're very proud of. We're bringing our narcotics unit and bringing in the street crime unit to make them work as one. We also adding our intel to it and doing a lot more from that standpoint. And it's an effort to do what we've been doing, but more consolidated and more a little more directive. But it's just our main purpose is to reduce crime and address the gang violence we have and drugs and guns in our neighborhood. So, but we're going to put our gang intelligence unit in there with Hiller and us. We're going to do it, bring all that together so we know we're knocking on the right door.
Chief, what about it? I mean, you come into the job and then all of this is going on. What's your perspective on what's happening in the city?
Yeah, so unfortunately we have seen an uptick in some of our violent crime numbers, especially homicides this first part of the year. The good news is that national average, I believe, is about 30% homicide clearance solve rate, and we're right now at 60% of the homicides that have happened this year. We've been able to make arrests and put those offenders in jail, and over half of those, so that's good. We're seeing kind of a trend of not only the suspects but the victims in some of these things getting younger and younger, which is alarming. So it's why we are working with a lot of our community partners, the mayor's office, the administration, Safe, Hopeful, Healthy, and a lot of our community partners to just help get the word out. A lot of resources. Everywhere I go, I say it's not something that only the police department can handle. We need our help. We need the help from the district attorney's office, the judges, and then all the community partners at the table to help reach out to these kids.
So, what's the spike about? We've seen an increase in female shooters and female-on-female shooters. What do you attribute that spike to?
I'm not sure that there's any rhyme or reason as far as the gender or anything like that goes. I think a lot of what we've seen is targeted attacks where the suspect and the victim know each other because they got in a disturbance or a fight, or because this group doesn't like this group. A lot of things sparking over social media, or because I go to this school, you go to that school, I rap under this label, you rap under that label. That is a lot of what we're seeing right now.
Hiller, we've talked a lot about the same bad actors, either them or people in their groups, causing some of this violence. What do we do about that? Because people are seeing the same faces keep committing the crime.
Yeah, so first of all, murder is rarely random, as the chief indicated. These are people that clearly know each other, have beefs, it's well known, and they're just not stopping what they're doing, and they're shooting at opportunity. And right now, although we're above last year by 7 homicides, I think it's way too early to tell where we're going to wind up. Because actually, when you look at non-fatal shootings and shots fired, we're only up 7%, whereas the murder's up 30%. The biggest number for us is shots fired and non-fatal shootings. So I have a feeling that things will level off, but I have unfortunately seen juvenile victims and defendants in more murders this year than I have before. And even not only just in the homicides, it's in the other shootings. So I know we're in the run now for another new superintendent here. And truancy, in my opinion, and education, or the lack of that, is the basis of everything we do. And unless and until we recognize the really serious truancy problem that we have, and we fix that, keep kids in school, get them off the street, then we as law enforcement have to deal with them, as opposed to parents in schools and aftercare. That's where it ought to be, and we're not where we should be.
So, and Cinnamon, I can't hear you in my ears. Sheriff, what about culture? How does the culture of violence impact where we see these numbers go? Because it's in broad daylight now.
Right. It's no doubt that it has a tremendous impact on it. You know, through the rap music they use, they calling each other out, they calling their families out, and it perpetuates violence, and it's gun violence, and it's really, you know, it's all tied together.
Okay.
It's not something that's why we bring in all of these entities together to address this collectively rather than independently.
Well, we're going to spend the entirety of the first 3 segments talking with these gentlemen about crime in East Baton Rouge Parish. So back with the chief, the DA, and the sheriff.
It's the best of both worlds. Baton Rouge's best selection of premium cigars and an unparalleled cigar lounge experience. Located in Town Center, it's Don Juan Cigar Company and Don Juan Cigar Bar. Walk into our amazing humidor at Don Juan Cigar Company, then walk next door and experience the plush atmosphere of Don Juan Cigar Bar. Come see why we are Baton Rouge's cigar and good time authority. Don Juan Cigar Company and Don Juan Cigar Bar.
Still talking crime with the sheriff, the DA, and the police chief. The DA who's in here getting ready for St. Patrick's Day this weekend, right?
Yeah, I've already had to listen to it. You know, he's behind me in the parade, and he just can't handle it. I mean, you know, I've offered for him to ride on the float with us.
Yeah,
but I mean,
is that right?
He's a tax collector. He's got all the money.
Just for the record, I think I'm leading the parade this year.
All right,
I'll
why don't
accept
you lead off the segment, specifically in the inner city parts of Baton Rouge that have been some of the more busy areas this year. What's BRPD doing?
Yeah, so specifically for those areas, there is definitely a need for proactive policing. And when I say proactive policing, we have to be strategic with it. We have to use all of our resources from our intelligence divisions, our crime gang intelligence gathering, our real-time crime center, all the technology that we have, you know, with the Page Rice camera initiatives and Connect Blues to our license plate readers and shot spotters. We got to gather all that information. The district attorneys, their crime analysis people have been very helpful. So all of us working together, sharing these resources and coming and identifying those areas where we're having problems, and those small percentage of the people that are causing the problems in those neighborhoods, kind of holding captive the good law-abiding people in those neighborhoods.
People don't often get to see the 3 of y'all in one place at one time. What's the working relationship as y'all address public safety here? Obviously, after the apprehension phase of it, it leads to you and your district attorneys, assistant district attorneys. How do y'all work together? What is it?
Well, you know, Hiller and I have worked together for years now. But I want to say this about the chief. Chief and I spent a lot of time 2 or 3 weeks ago. We spent about probably 4 hours talking.
Yeah, closer to 5, I think.
Yeah, it was, and going up,
Sounds like a conversation with the sheriff.
But I'm this is a breath of fresh air here,
Right.
you know. And I mean, I think he's got some good ideas, and I hope he's able to implement them as he wants and needs to. You know, he knows what the problems are. He just said it, but you know, people, and you know, Clay, we talk about statistics, but. And Chief, you just mentioned it. As far as people out there in the community, and it's, their perception is their reality. And most of the people, you've heard me say this many a time, when we deploy into any area or give directive patrols into any area that we go to, and we go to some of the most crime-ridden, poverty-stricken areas in the parish, but the vast majority of the people there are good people. They're just like you and I. All they want to do is live in peace and raise a family. It's that small percentage he talks about that wreaks havoc on everybody.
You know, there's a lot of perception here that this city is out of control, that people aren't safe when they move around and do their business. I'm sure you guys hear it. Chief, you've been out at a number of community events since you've taken the job. You're hearing the feedback from the community. The sheriff has talked about, regardless of what the numbers say, and Hiller and I have talked about it too, the perception has to be addressed. How do you address the perception that this is just not a safe community?
I think by being present. You know, my first 100 days, the number one thing was gather. And that is just, I've been attending meeting after meeting after meeting, going to every community that I can. And no matter where I've gone in the city, North Baton Rouge, South Baton Rouge, everywhere in between, faith-based organizations to just town hall meetings, everybody has the same goal, and it's to make Baton Rouge safe and prosperous. And it's just all of us getting together doing that. And I think it's just being involved and letting them know that we care and letting them know that we're available and that we're doing work.
And you know, we started years back with the Guardian Initiative, and it's worked well.
Dr. Muriel Harrison.
Right, and she's that woman's godsend.
Yes, she is.
She has really done a tremendous job out there. We're seeing the same thing because Glen Oaks area, we kind of share some of the area, but probably 80–90% of it is ours, not the city's. But they're doing some similar things. Councilman Hurst working real closely with us, and they got a Glen Oaks initiative that they're bringing together, and we're going to meet on that hopefully in the next week or so. See what.
Man,
how
Chris
we can-
Richard is here later on. He must
That's
be
right.
bubbling thinking
That's
about all
right.
the stuff you're saying.
Well, we had to talk.
All right.
But,
Listen,
but that's it.
we have a minute before we go into break and come back. I'd like to talk about resources, right? If you had a wish list, and I'll start with Hiller, and then we'll come back to the heads of these agencies. If you had a wish list of one thing you could have right now for your agency, what would it be?
More personnel.
Okay.
In pretty much every department.
Yeah. Okay.
But that means with more personnel, you have to add staff to the public defender and the courts as well. You can't have it lopsided, but surely it has to be fair.
Okay. Chief, quickly.
Yeah, I think
We'll come back to
manpower.
it.
We're of course short on manpower, and so I hear everywhere, hey, we don't see as many patrol cars driving around.
Right.
We are short on manpower, over 130 officers right now.
Sheriff?
I would echo what these two gentlemen have said. You know, personnel is the biggest issue anywhere. Any department across the state, whatever, it's personnel. If we had the contingent of personnel that we should have, we'd be able to address a lot more.
Take a quick break. Back with these gentlemen in just a moment. Oh man, these commercial breaks have been brutal. We're back with the chief, the DA, and the sheriff. I would like to ask about the public's interaction with law enforcement. We know that there is a big fear of retaliation, which has been one of the reasons people don't like to speak up, which has led to the value of the Paige Rice initiative with the cameras. How do you get more people engaging you to tell you what they see in their areas?
You got to go out in the community and have one-on-one with the people living there. It's the only way that you can really build trust with them is let them know who you are, find out who they are, find out what their main concerns are, and address them. And we all know what the concerns are, no matter where you go. But I think it's just building that trust between deputies, between the public, between our office, and and there are a lot of people living in fear right now, and it's that the only way you break that gap is to try to bridge that gap. Rather, is to try to build your relationships,
right?
Maintain your relationships. When people know you care, it goes a long, long way.
I mean, I think, as you know, crime is concentrated heavily amongst certain groups of people, certain places, and overwhelming Baton Rouge is a safe spot. But you still may not get that feeling. And I think historically, law enforcement, and Baton Rouge is not alone, we do a bad job of saying all of the good things we do because it's the bad things that make the news, the good things really don't. I know that when the chief had his acceptance speech, he said that he was going to highlight the good work of the department. I think if we could do that in a tasteful way, as opposed to just tooting your own horn, that would be something that would be very beneficial for all. But coming from us, it seems to be self-serving.
Yeah.
So if we could have more assistance in promoting the good things that these men and women that put their lives on the line do every day, it would be very helpful.
Yeah, I have to just piggyback on what both of them said. We go out every Thursday afternoon and do our community walks. Every Thursday afternoon we do that in different areas around Baton Rouge, just being out there, making those one-on-one connections, letting the community know that our officers are out there, they're doing their part to try to make a difference. We've been a lot more active on our social media platforms, trying to share data, we shared stats from February and we got a lot of feedback. People were like, wow, we didn't realize that 250 felony arrests, took 110 guns off the street. Just those kind of numbers, letting the community know that we're out there trying to make a difference, trying to do our part and being involved.
To every skeptic who are thinking it's not going to get any better, it's only going to get worse because it's getting worse around the country, how do you make them optimistic?
Well, if we do nothing, it will get worse, and I think that attitude to say that, but bringing people together and people standing up, we do our jobs, to make sure that they're serviced correctly and address their issues. But it, you know, I guess what it goes back to that old saying about the only thing for evil to flourish is for good men and women to do nothing.
Edmund Burke, yes, sir.
And that goes for us as
Yeah.
well as the public.
What about you,
I
Hillary?
mean, I think what the public needs to know, and we've said many times, is that the sheriff and I have been here for a lot of times. This seat has always been a little bit different with the changes, but regardless of who sits in these spots, we have always gotten along. We talk to each other. We understand each other's problems. We work together. And when you go to other communities, that just does not happen anywhere,
Well, you
unlike
don't see
Baton
it.
Rouge.
Listen, man, you made a little history at BRPD by appointing the first African-American female deputy chief. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, so I realize, and it's Women's Month, so I'm glad that they're highlighting her. I would be remiss not to say that race and sex had nothing to do with that decision. She is more than qualified, and I'm very happy to have Deputy Chief Sharon Douglas serving in that role as my Chief of Staff, #2 in command, because of all the great things that she brings to that job, and looking forward to working with her and moving forward to do great things for the Baton Rouge Police Department and the community.
She's tenacious. Casey Hicks is here too, so you got to give a shout out.
Casey, look, we couldn't do it without Casey. Casey has just done a wonderful job
She
for us.
keeps you on time for sure.
Yeah, she does. And but she does a wonderful job in talking to everyone, the community, whatever, and keeping us on our path. But
Well, gentlemen, would you come back and do this before the summer when we transition?
If
Yes.
I'm treated kindly by the
Yeah, I would
sheriff,
love to. I would love to.
Anyway, let's talk about investment in community with our next guest. Chris Richard is here. He's with North Baton Rouge, and we'll talk a little bit about that coming up on the show. You are never going to be treated well. So I love it, man. Well, he was referenced in one of the earlier segments on the show. Christopher Richard is one of the community leaders here, primarily in the Glen Oaks area, and you heard these gentlemen talk about public safety here and specifically some of those tough areas. First, what's your thoughts on what you heard? And then what do you think we should start with when it comes to investment in things that have a part in reducing crime?
Well, my thing is congratulations again to Chief Morse. His first 100 days, I can speak for the Glen Oaks area, has been dynamite. But that's what he's supposed to do, reach out to the people that he has to deal with as a normal. What I really believe in is that the engagement of the community itself is what's important.
Yeah.
It's like if you don't have the residents getting involved, then nothing gets solved. Chief Morris, Sid Gautreaux, District Attorney Hillard Moore, they can speak to it from one aspect.
Yeah.
But on the ground, it's totally, totally different.
What's that perspective?
Well, you have to look at the reason why kids or younger people in school age are committing so many crimes or allegedly committing so many crimes. Why are we dealing with a truancy problem? What are the things that we can do in our community to engage with them? Because it's not all about the police response. It's about the community response as well.
So what about some of the blighted areas of our community? Because you hear that all the time. It's a fact. Where all these blighted areas are, you see higher percentages of crime.
Yes.
What should we be doing about that?
Well, one, we should be trying to tackle the ownership of the areas that are blighted. Many of them are homes that were built back in the 70s, 80s, the people died off in it, and there's just no general claim to residency in them. What we need to do is try to gather up all these homes and try to at least find out the ownership, and then try to address it.
You know, there are two different realities as it relates to the people, the bad actors. There are people who want them off the streets, but who are afraid to say something about it, and then there are people who just flat out ignore it or even excuse it. What's your perspective on that? Because people have a right to live in peace, even in the poor parts of our community.
Well, a lot of people, I believe that some try to pass the buck. It's like they expect the police, it's like, well, that's their job to do that. No, it's not that. It's the community has to get involved. And I think the lack of engagement sometimes is what is necessarily contributing to the problem.
Yeah.
Like you have to be able to take an investment in where you live. That's where you live. That's where you spend your money. That's where your family is. So you have to be invested in the security of your area and your community for anything change can take place.
With everything you got going on, I hear you're running for something. What are you running for?
Yeah, yes. One of the many hats that I'm trying to do is like I'm a candidate for the Democratic Parish Executive Committee
All right.
in District 5 and the Democratic State Central Committee in District 29.
To do what?
Basically, these are small seats.
Yeah.
These are very small seats. They're party seats. Every 4 years they come about. What we need to do is try to get more young people, such as myself, and I'm claiming to be young, as to get engaged, get involved in the party, get involved with having the integrity of the Democratic in the Democratic Party. It's been a very long journey, but I think it will pay off in the end.
Well, you've been in the community a very long time, so I can vouch for how hard you work. And you're both about accountability for bad actors, but also for resources there. So we appreciate it. And I want to do a larger discussion again before the summer, and I'll get you to come back to talk with me on that.
We got a lot of good things happening in District 5 under the tutorage of District 5 Councilman Darrell Hurst and Senator Regina Barrow.
I'll get both of them in. In fact, I'm talking to Senator Barrow about coming here now. All right, folks, next week on the show, you've heard about this new arena that potentially is coming to Baton Rouge, specifically the campus of LSU. Jill Kidder with Visit Baton Rouge is going to be with us to talk about that. Myra Richardson is back to talk about the buzz in Baton Rouge, with the Baton Rouge update segment. And I'm doing a podcast this week that you'll see next week with a gentleman who goes by Cooking with Cajun on Instagram. He's got about 1 million followers, and we'll show you some clips from that.
I want them. I want them.
Next week on The Clay Young Show. You guys have a great weekend and happy St. Patrick's Day to you.